It's a penny. I could just walk right past it. Most people do. It's just 1 cent. Not really worth that much. Actually costs the government more to make these than they're actually worth. But is it really worth it to pick it up? To waste your time actually bending over to pick it up? That's what I'm going to figure out today. So I'm going to start off by doing just a real simple experiment by figuring out how long it actually takes to pick up pennies. I'm going to time myself picking up 100 pennies, and they're all going to be in the same spot. So it's just sort of a hypothetical experiment, but it gives us a little bit of an idea of how much time it would take just to bend over, pick one up, and then put it in your pocket and pick up another one. And it's going to look kind of silly, but I'm gonna do this real quick. Here is 100 pennies, spread out evenly. Kinda random. This is some good exercise. We're gonna learn stuff. We're gonna get in shape. 98, 99, and 100. All right, so that took 4 minutes and let's say 7 seconds. Okay, let's see. So it took me 4 minutes to pick up 100 pennies, 25 cents a minute, which would come up to $15 an hour. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so about $15 an hour. That's not bad for picking up pennies. That's not too bad. That's assuming that there's a huge pile of pennies right in front of you at all times, you know. So that's obviously not very realistic. Normally, if you're really paying attention, you might only run into a couple pennies a day, if that, maybe nothing. So we're also not taking into account the fact that we just have an incredible amount of pennies, just an absurd amount of pennies after, say, an 8-hour day of picking up pennies all day. How much would that be? 8 hours a day. It'd be 15 times 8, which is $1,220 a day. Yeah, be $120 a day, but in pennies. So that's 1,200 pennies, which is just not what you want to have in your pockets. You'd be spending all your pennies on new belts and pants, which is just, you know, not going to work. So for this next part, I wanted to know what some other people's opinions on pennies were. So I simply asked some friends, what are your opinions on pennies? And this is the result.
Pennies?
You know, Abe Lincoln's on the penny. You know, he was also shot by John Wilkes Booth, who was an actor. I hate actors.
I don't like pennies.
So I think we should get rid of cash completely, like abolish it. We should just have credit cards.
My opinion of the penny is that they're fun to collect, but they're mostly useless unless you collect a lot of them, and then they're not as useless.
You know, you can't buy a good muffin with a penny.
I don't really have any opinions on pennies.
Lots of chocolate chips.
My brother used to throw away pennies because he thought they were really useless when he was in his younger preteen years. And I used to go in and shake it to see how many pennies there were there, and I used to collect his pennies that he threw away.
I hate like all change.
I love change. I have a lot of piggy banks. I'm very pro change.
Abraham Lincoln was a white man's president.
2 T-Rexes tall.
So, a quick history of the materials that go into making a penny. Up until the mid-1850s, they were entirely made from copper. After that point, they started adding zinc, and until 1982, they were still mostly copper. Currently, they are over 97% zinc. So we talked about if it's worth it to actually pick up pennies, and that is entirely dependent on how much you value your time at. But what we haven't talked about is if it's worth it for the government to actually make pennies. And that is a definitive no. So if you take into account materials, production, and distribution, the price to make 1 penny is about 2 pennies. And obviously, that's not worth it. On average, the US government loses around $50 million every year making pennies. And don't even get me started on nickels. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that little discussion about pennies. And oh, look at that. Okay.